Yeah. You're a bit this connection. You're a bit choppy, so just repeat it if you can't hear me. Sorry. Can you hear me? Oh, this isn't working, is it?
It
Hi,
is.
Mike. We're going.
Fuck.
We're all good, Mike. We're going live in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We've got you. Hello and welcome to the Last Word on Spurs. You just heard the intro there. It's about as this is about as natural as Tottenham Hotspur in the transfer market at the moment. So you can explain and then see where we're coming from. If you're listening to the show for the first time, where have you been? We're of course on iTunes. We're on Spotify and Audio Boom. We're across a range of different audio platforms. We're of course on Twitter at Last Word on Spurs. We're on Facebook and Instagram too. And we are also live on YouTube. Or for many of you, today will be welcome to Groundhog Day. We are 26 days into this January transfer window. Spurs yet to make a January signing. And we've got a very special guest joining us, along with some returning guests. First up, my top right, I've got back on the Last Word on Spurs. Of course, one of our own boy band member of Blue. The one who Antony Costa's back in the house. And is it Rantony or Antony tonight? How are you?
I don't know yet. I don't know if I'm going to be ranting in tonight. It's up to Frank. If Frank feeds me, and I, like some feeds came with the goals, I'll see if I can do a few flick-ons. Do you know what I mean? But I might get into my little rant later on, but I'll save that for later.
Yeah, start as you mean to
But
go
it's good
on.
to be see. It's good to see you, Rick. It's good to see everyone.
And you start as you mean to go on like Spurs in the transfer market. Hopefully at some point we will wake up, fingers crossed. Tonight to also have back on the Last One on Spurs. It feels like it's been a while. So also pleased to be welcoming the wonderful Frankie Major back on the Last One on Spurs. Frankie, how are you, mate?
Well, it's good to be back. I'm okay, thanks. This is my first show since the Christmas special with Tom Huddleston. So
yeah.
For me personally, Happy New Year to all of the Last Word on Spurs listeners. And I just wish that we had a bit more to talk about tonight, Rick. With obviously the narrative we were looking for tonight when we booked this show was obviously to discuss transfers, but there's been a lack of incomings and outgoings, and it's been a bit frustrating. But we've just got to hope that obviously over the next sort of 4 to 5 days, 3 to 4 days, something happens, and a piece of one of the dominoes falls, and the rest sort of fall into play and follow that. But we can only hope at the moment, mate.
Yeah, I mean, at the moment, I think we're still stuck like you said there, we're stuck like a sloppy dominoes the way it's going. We might not even take off the way it's playing on at the moment. So there you go, the big build-up. We're also delighted to be welcoming back to the Last Word on Spurs. I say under difficult circumstances, we've got the brilliant Sky Sports journalist, Michael Bridge joins us again. Mike, how are you? Sorry for putting you through this. I think there might be a slight delay on the line here as we're waiting for Mike to hear us. Mike, can you hear us?
Hi, guys. Hello.
What are we getting ourselves into, Mikey, here? What are we getting ourselves into? Mike, how are you firstly? You been well?
Yeah, can you hear me?
We can hear you. There seems to be a slight delay. There seems a slight delay at the moment on the line, Mike.
Yeah, good, guys. Yeah, you okay, Rick? You all right?
We're all good. We're all good. I feel like we're as far behind as Tottenham Hotspur's current January targets as the way things going. So,
do you know what? Do you want me to come back in?
We'll bring Mike back in. And like I say, we'll try again to see if we can get Mike going here. I'm sorry, guys. It's one of those days, as again, 26 days into a transfer window. And this is what we're trying to contend with. So please forgive us. And let's start with you because, listen, the show must go on. Bridge will be back with us in a second. Tell us, Ant, so far, the lack of January business. How are you feeling right now as a Spurs fan?
I feel very nervous, very anxious. I don't normally get like that, but it's Tottenham Hotspur. It's what we do. Everything's last minute. We're linked to that player. We're linked to these players. We're linked to that player. That player's leaving. That player's going to go on loan. That player, are they going to cover his wages here? Are they not? Are they are? And I'll tell you something. I've had enough. I've had enough so far. They've got 4 days now. Because let's have it right. They're not going to work on a Sunday, are they? To try and get a few deals, hopefully a deal over the line. So they've got 4 days.
We kind of work during the week, let alone on a Sunday, the way things are going.
Exactly. We haven't worked for 26 days. And it's sad because when it was the 1st of Jan, I spoke to you, Rick. I spoke to Frank on a regular. I spoke to some of the other boys from our group. And And everyone was excited. Everyone was excited. Where are we going to go from here? Where is Levy going to back Conte? Who does Conte want? Let's bring him in. Let's sell this person. Let's sell that person. And we're still in the same situation. Now, we've got so much potential to aim for top 4, right? Okay. Will we get there? I don't know. But let's give it a challenge. Let's build on these past sort of 9-10 games that Conte's been in charge and build on that and get on there and get on the ladder. Get Champions League football, which we all want. You know, I was at the Chelsea game the other week. 40,000 people. You know, I thought this stadium was supposed to bring us success and signings and glory. Might as well just kept the old White Hart Lane because it was nothing. It was boring. It was boring atmosphere. I was there. I was fed up because it was Chelsea. It was Chelsea at home, and you know what happens against them? They just turn up. The fans, some fans are in good voice, but it's just one of them things where we know what needs to be done, and it's such a shame that the board can't see that. And I'm talking as a fan now. Forget what I do and what I've done in the public eye. I'm a fan. I'm a fan of Tottenham Hotspur Football Club, and I will be to the day I die. I was a Spurs fan before I got into blue. You know, I used to script and scrape to try and get tickets because I couldn't afford tickets. And now it's so easy to get tickets, and that's so sad where we've come. Do you see what I'm saying? And yeah, right. Yep. Zero backing as usual. If Conte walks, where do we go from here?
Yeah, it's something I don't want to think about. I mean, Frank, it's hard because I want to say generally as a show, we always try and be pretty much fair balanced. We try and call things as we see it. Again, I think you'd be silly not to be able to understand the frustration at the moment amongst the Spurs fan base that in a window where it was evidently clear the club needs strengthening, that we are leaving it down to the final days in order to try and bring players in. And even then, we're not sure if we are going to get these players over the line. What's your thoughts, Frank, on so far how Spurs have tried to go about their January business?
Well, maybe I'm naive because I sincerely thought, well, genuinely rather thought that it would change under Conte. I thought they're hiring Conte now. We've had this discussion, Rick, and I've never seen the fan base so unanimous in such a positive mood about this manager over any manager in my lifetime. Certainly, when Conte was appointed, there's not one Tottenham fan who said, "I'm not happy. That's a bad appointment." Jose Mourinho was divisive, as we all know. Pochettino was unknown. He'd done pretty well at Southampton, but it was sort of at the time it was a risk. I mean, we were sort of happy with Harry Redknapp. He came in, if you remember, but again, he wasn't the world-class manager, in my opinion, that Antonio Conte is in his prime. Off the back of winning one of the 4 or 5 major leagues in Europe. I thought we'd change. As always, we're sort of leaving it into the last days of the transfer window. I don't know why we never learn our lesson. I think the only player in recent memory that we actually signed early into a transfer window was Ndombele. and that's been an absolute disaster. So I am incredibly frustrated. I mean, obviously, there's time now between now and the deadline for them to perhaps get sort of 2 or 3 in. But there's so much work to do, Rick, because, you know, we see it in the press, the media, the hearsay. It seems to me he wants 5 players out, Conte, and he wants 2 or 3 in. So that's 8 potential transfers that we've got to get over the line in a matter of a handful of days. It's just not going to happen. And I try to be balanced. I know you can't do it all in one window. I'm not expecting miracles from a January transfer window, certainly. But when you see other clubs putting in bids like Newcastle and Aston Villa and Juventus with Vlahovic, when you see these sorts of deals getting done, as you said, when we're now out of the last 10 league games, 1 loss, 6 wins, we're in a sort of prime position, the best position out of the sort of chasing pack for top 4, and we haven't done anything. And it's just Groundhog Day, Rick. I'm not going to sort of be miserable for the next hour or so that we're on the show for, but you tell me what is there to be what's there to be positive about from this window so far.
You've got to talk from the heart.
Well, if we'd seen a few of the players go that we know that Conte wants gone, then that's a sign of progress. But we haven't seen anything. And if they'll never learn their lesson, Rick. This is what I'm taking from this, because now they've got Conte. There's no pandemic. There's no excuse that the revenue's not there. There've been events. We've had the AJ fight. There's been NFL. Fans are back in the stadium. And we were told in that interview from Daniel Levy that whatever the stadium generates will go on players and recruitment or back into the club. And I just haven't seen any proof of that so far, Rick.
Yeah, I must say, Michael Bridge is going to be back joining us very, very soon. We're trying to resolve his internet connection. I don't think the club have pulled it just yet. So we're hoping he'll be joining us in the next few minutes. I just want to ask you, Ant, coming over to you,
Go on.
just from Frankie's point there. Bearing in mind Paratici's coming in the summer, and you would argue that he's taken some of the pressure off Daniel Levy in terms of the on-field recruitment and what Spurs are looking to do from a footballing perspective. Is it not quite staggering that at least there hasn't been any movement of players out the door? I know we've obviously sold Markande recently and Jack Clark has gone on loan, but we haven't actively, if it's about moving players on, started doing that process yet in order to fund what looks like it's going to be a very, very late scramble now for incomings during this window.
Well, yeah, because what is Paratici doing? Because yeah, all right, he got rid of the players in the summer, and and I started to see a bit of as Frank said, we started seeing the players gone in the summer, and started seeing a bit of a wheel of players coming in. Some of them players ain't really cut the mustard yet. I mean, I want to be proven wrong, but at the moment, it's not happening. So they've kept the same players that were there last season, apart from Romero. Now, well, Emerson as well. But what I'm trying to say is that they haven't pulled up any trees yet, which is fine. It's a new league, blah, blah, blah. But we're in the January transfer window. As I said to you, we started talking. We got a good chance of finishing fourth and battling for the top 4 teams, right? Build on that. Build on that. We've had that under Redknapp. Redknapp wanted Suarez. He goes and gets Luis Zaha. He wanted Gary Cahill. We went and got Ryan Nelson. And then we went backwards again. So what is the point of hiring these managers? You might as well just get Levy in charge, mate. Because where do we go from here?
Just to interject there, every manager has been in that position. Now, whatever you think of him, Jose Mourinho clearly wanted Skinrar from Skinriar at Inter Milan.
Inter Milan.
And he got him Joe Rodon, who now can't get a game. We now can't get rid of him. He's just basically a sort of dead duck sitting there, isn't he, in the squad, not featuring. And we never learn. And the issue that we've all got now is historically, over the last 21 years, ENIC, as our owners, have never once wholeheartedly backed a manager. Now, you could obviously say that they had to go in the transfer window, which has now actually set us back a few years, the dreaded summer transfer window of 2019.
2019.
That was too little too late, because it was after Poch had moved stadiums twice. He didn't sign anyone for 2-3 windows. He had all these sort of difficulties he was battling against at the time. And when we were actually in attraction, a top 2 side at the time, we didn't sign anyone. And it's just rinse, repeat. It's so frustrating.
It's all the time. But Frank, you said it before Bridges arrived. Newcastle, they've just bidded 30 mil on that Leon player. You're telling me, right? No disrespect to Newcastle. Yeah, okay, they've got money now. He wants to come to England now and be in a relegation battle. They're paying the money, man. Pay the money. As Frank said, we got the money from the revenues at the matches and the NFLs and AJ fights. Where's it going? What's going on here? You've got a fantastic manager that we're crying out for, and you're not going to back the man. Come on. What is the point? What is the point?
Well, I listen again, and I think many people will share and echo those frustrations. Mike, thank you for joining us. I know you've had to go through extreme lengths to be able to get to us again. So this is obviously, again, is really appreciated. Mike, we've just discussed in the last few minutes of Spurs' lack of business so far during this January transfer window. I think the first thing we're keen to ask you is, given that we are 26 days so far into January, not a single summer signing through the door, from what you're hearing from your sources and around the club, can you give us any confidence that Conte is still happy in the role, given the lack of progress so far on incoming players? We're going to need to unmute Mike. If you can, I think you can hear us on that one. We might need to unmute him. Even Mike don't want to answer the question. Let's see if we can unmute Mike. Can Mike see the unmute button? It's going to be one of those shows, I'm afraid. I tell you what an evening we're in store for here. There we go. Bridgie, can you hear us? If you wanted an analogy, right, of Tottenham Hotspur's January transfer window, you've got it right here on your bottom left. Can you hear me? We can hear you now, Mike. We've got you. We think.
Can you hear me?
We can, just about.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we got you. We got you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Can you not hear me?
We can hear you now, Mike. We can hear you now.
It's unmuted. Oh, fuck.
Oh, Mike.
I'll try.
I'm going to text him.
Sorry. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Well, we can hear you, Mike. We can hear you. We can hear you.
Can you not hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
We can hear you, Mike.
Can
We
you hear
can
me?
hear you. We can hear you. The poor bloke, I tell you, what an evening we're in store here for here. Mike's reaction
Hold
says
on.
it all. We are gonna bring back Mike in. I know people are loving this in the comments. Whether he's
Sorry,
Arsenal
everyone.
fans or whatever.
It's
I mean,
live. It's live. It's live. What can you do?
Listen, it's live TV. As Jason says on the screen there, that is how Paratici cooks. We hope it's not the case because we've only got a few days left to act. We are going to try and bring Michael back in a second. I know he's trying.
Sorry, can you see us? Well, what can you see? Forget. Take your last word on Spurs hat off, right, for a second.
Yep.
What can you see happening?
Well, I can just see at the moment, I'm being honest with you, a lack of a plan, lack of any form of structure as to what we're trying to do at the moment. I don't really understand where we're at. We're 26 days into a window. If you're going to bring Conte in, you have to act like a big club, and we're not acting like a big club. And I think that goes from the top right down. And, I know there's a keenness to bring players or get players out of the door, but at the same time, we should not be in a position where Spurs haven't been able to bring one player in yet. And my biggest concern, which we are going to ask Mike eventually when we can get him on, is just how Antonio Conte is feeling right now and what the sources are around the club. Because I can't imagine when you're bringing one of the best managers in the world that he can be happy with the lack of business so far. I mean, the concern for me is that it doesn't appear like we seem to have a plan, an identity or a structure as to what we're trying to do this window. Again, we'll come on to some of the players in a second. But I mean, I don't know what you're thinking, Frankie. At the moment, it just seems like almost a scattergun approach of names coming to the table where we'll touch upon them in a second that we haven't quite heard of before. And yet we're meant to be believe and recognising that these players are going to be good enough for Tottenham.
Well, it is. It's confusing and conflicting because of from all the sources and reports that you see, there was a deal in place for Adama Traore, and then it seems that Conte wasn't Conte's choice. It was Paratici's. So if that's the case, the sort of player goes, or Conte has to give that player the green light before it's signed off. If he's not signed that off, does it mean that he actually wants Traore? With obviously this supposed bid for Luis Diaz, does that now mean that he wants Diaz and we're not getting? It's all over the place. We're not identifying 3 number 1 targets for Conte in this window who are available, or we could potentially agree a pre-contract with for the summer. We're not identifying these choices and doing our business early. We wait until the end of the window. We're seeing who's available. We're throwing bids out there, and then basically seeing from who's accepted or who's interested, who do we pick to bring into the team. It just seems, I don't know, it just seems ridiculous. And I don't know what Conte's making of it all, because he's used to being at clubs. But when he says, I want that player, they tend to sort of get that player. The players that he signed at Chelsea were top players. He had a lot of money there. He had a big budget. Inter Milan, he got Lukaku. That was his number 1 target. And you're telling me, Rick, that this midfielder, the Moroccan lad from Fiorentina, is Conte's number 1 target in midfield of all of the available players who we could potentially get this window? Yep. I'm not having that. I'm guessing, but I'm not having that. And it just seems that why, historically, particularly since the Pochettino era, well, actually going back before that, why do we always seem to be, as Ant said, linked with these we have these number 1 targets? Why do we never get these number 1 targets? Why do we always get the second or the third choice? And then ultimately, when we get the second or third choice, they don't end up playing after a year. They'll have chances, as many of these players have, and then they're just in the squad on contracts. We can't get rid of them because we tried to save a few £1 million here or there instead of buying the players in the first place that would have been here for 4 or 5 years and progress the team. And it just seems to happen every year, Rick. It's just, I'm bored of it, to be honest with you. No. And I don't even know. I haven't got a clue what the next few days is going to throw up. But I will tell you one thing. I guarantee you I'll be disappointed by the end of this window. And for me to say that is just indicative of this board and how they behave and how they've acted in the past. Because I don't think there will be I don't want to be negative. I don't think Luis Diaz will happen. I don't. A deal of that magnitude, this close to the window. I just can't see it, Rick.
Yeah,
we've been there before. Right, let's get a good signing. You know, an up and coming great youngster. Let's bid. Just put it out there. We've bid. That's what it feels like. Maybe they have, but that's what it feels like as an outsider looking in. Let's go and put 45 million plus 5 million this. Yeah, go
on that potential signing of the guy. And listen, I mean, you can't get away from it. He looks a really formidable prospect. Look, 14 goals in 17-18 league games so far. You can't deny the quality. But I'm looking at this from a recruitment aspect. That Spurs have already got Steven Bergwijn. They've got Lucas Moura. They've got Heung-min Son. They've got Brian Hill. That's 4 wingers already. If you're adding Adama Traore potentially to that, that's 5. Although I know obviously the plan is for him to be converted to a right wing back, but essentially
I can't see him coming, mate. I can't see Traore.
The only question I ask on Diaz is that specifically what should be our number one target at the moment, or would you rather see Spurs go out and get ourselves a creative midfielder? Watch Philip Coutinho go to Aston Villa. I totally understand that. Again, you know, Steven Gerrard, he's got close links to him. Maybe that would have persuaded him anyway. But I can't believe you're telling me that Coutinho would have had the choice between Aston Villa and Tottenham Hotspur. He will be picking Tottenham. I just refuse to believe that. And the chance to play with Antonio Conte. Now, I know there's conflicting reports that allegedly...
Yeah, but are you going to come and play for...
in him.
Yeah, okay. So he's not interested in him. But flip it on the flip side. Come to Tottenham. Yeah, brilliant. Great stadium. I've got a great stadium. I've got great training facilities. That's what I keep getting told. He comes, and then it don't work out for him. Then what? He's going to go to a club where he's Coutinho, for example. He's a big fish. He's a big fish at Villa now. Do you know what I'm saying? And he's got the links to Gerrard. Him and Gerrard are mates from back in the day. He ain't going to come to Tottenham, but we should be identifying these players to improve us. I don't want to be seeing these people. Oh yeah, but he's going to be good for 2025. He's going to come good at about sort of April time, 2025. I don't want to hear it, mate. Don't want to hear it. I want to see players coming in, improving that first 11. As I said to him, we started talking. How many of Paratici's transfers have started in our first 11?
Romero's the one that you would say is a shoe-in starter. However, Emerson, unfortunately, seems to have lost a bit of confidence. He's had a bit of a funny start. He doesn't offer a lot going forward, but I think...
So one or two of them players, Frank, that's what I mean.
Well, we've centre midfield. I think with Conte, he prefers to play a 3-4-3 over a 3-5-2. And in that case, you can have a front three. Obviously, he has the 2 10s who sort of are inside forwards as well. And a front three of Luis Diaz, Son and Kane is sexy. That's beautiful. And in Conte's system, particularly with the 3... The 2 central midfielders are not creative midfielders. They're ball retainers. They get the ball and they recycle it. The creativity comes from the front 3, the 2 10s off the front man, and the wing backs. But our wing backs, I mean, Reguilon, I think he's got lots of potential and played very well against Leicester. I mean, the hamstring issue that he's having at the moment is a bit worrying. But I'm happy with Reguilon. But if we are going to continue with this system and expect the wing backs to be creative as they are for Chelsea with Chilwell and James, I mean, look at their results since those 2 have got injured. We're going to need a better right wing back. And we certainly are going to need somebody in centre midfield. And this is where the money needs to be spent, firstly, for me, who can control the game of football. Now, I'm not saying a Coutinho type, but I'm saying somebody, even in a Basuma mould, who, unfortunately, with Højbjerg, when he's put under pressure at times and he has to rush, he's passing his wayward. We all know that. So we need a centre midfielder and we need a right wing back. And
Frank, who do we talk about? Who do we talk about who do me and you talk about every time this team plays, we go, why don't we ever go for him? I'm sitting on the comments, James Ward-Prowse.
Unbelievable
Prowse, Ruben Neves, but Basuma, these are all players. They're at Brighton, they're at Wolverhampton Wanderers, and they're at Southampton. We're Tottenham Hotspur. We're supposed to be a big club. We're Champions League finalists just under 3 years ago. And we can't even get the best of the rest, so to speak, and these players in the Premier League. And I'll tell you why these transfers don't happen, is our board would not want to spend £50 million on Ruben Neves or Basuma or James
Tariq Lamptey. Tariq Lamptey it improves you straight away. You sign him on a Thursday, he knows the Premier League, he can start on a Saturday. This is what I'm saying. Go and get Calvin Phillips. They prove you. They improve you. These proven players, they improve you. I don't want to be hearing, oh yeah, he's going to be good in about 2 months' time. You've got to give him time. It's new this, new that. Go and get people, man, that knows the Prem. For God's sake. Fed up with it.
Honestly.
Sorry, now Bridgie's
No,
turn.
no, please. Bridgie, lovely to have you here. I know we've fought
Love ya.
through we've fought through a storm to get you here, so thank you for joining us. Over 1,000 Spurs fans, or how many viewers are watching us live, expecting of some news. Mike, firstly, I mean, listen, lovely to have you here. I know it's manic for you this particular time, so thanks for finding the time. Obviously, it's been a crazy, chaotic 26 days without any incoming so far. Can you maybe just bring us up to speed from sources you hear within Sky, whether Antonio Conte is still happy at the club given the lack of January business in terms of incoming so far?
Right. Well, first I need to apologise to everyone. Can you hear me?
Yeah. We've got you. That's going to be a catchphrase now, I'm afraid, for you tomorrow morning or whenever you're back on Sky.
I've run down to reception. There, come on, you need to give me extra Wi-Fi. So, yeah, I've been on the arse end of nowhere today, so apologies. Look, what I'm told about Antonio Conte is this. Very, very simple. And this is from a colleague in Italy who knows him well. Look, I'm here as a broadcaster, but as a fan as well. All right? So I am obsessed with the guy. I think he's the real deal, the best manager I've seen. What he's done to the likes of Eric Dyer, unbelievable. So this is what I've been told about Eric Conte, Antonio Conte.
Might be by the time we've finished.
Yeah, he's fine. He's fine. What people need to remember is he left Inter Milan because he was told they need to sell players. And he said, I've just won the league here. I have broken the mould of Serie A. Juventus dominated every year. And this is what I get. He didn't like it. He left. What's happening at Tottenham is he was very honest a few weeks ago. He said, I've done my evaluation of the squad. There's players I trust to go forward and there's players I don't. The problem he's had is that there's many who he doesn't. He's had to play. Unfortunately, a lot of them played in the Chelsea matches. He's a little bit taken aback by how much he has to do. If you look at it, right, when he was approached, you look at Tottenham Hotspur on the outside. We all know, everyone listening, watching, know what we've got. However, if you said Tottenham Hotspur, best training ground in the world, one of them. Best stadium in the world, one of them. Harry Kane, Heung-min Son, Lloris. On the outside, it sounds very good. But when you get to the inside of the meat, it's not cooked enough. And he's not convinced by a lot of the players in the squad. And why would he be? So that's what it is. That's the frustration. Why is he frustrated? Because he's a winner. He's a winner. He wants to win games. But he knows the situation. He's brought about 30 coaches, fitness coaches, you name it. He wants the best for this football club. Don't worry about 18-month contracts or anything like that. There's no such thing as long-term in management anymore. He just wants the best. And I think if Spurs can back him, just back him because they've got the best manager. There's no point eating a fillet steak with a plastic fork, like I always say. So I don't think there's any worry about on the brink of doing this and that. He knows January is tough. The summer is the key, the absolute key. 10 in, 8 in, 10 out. It doesn't happen in January. I've been on a transfer show for 3 weeks now. I've talked Villa, Newcastle, and then other clubs trying. The problem is at the moment is that now there's a winter break. There isn't this rush about getting someone signed by a certain match deadline. But I'm convinced he's fine, that he's done his evaluation. And in his mind now, he's thinking, okay, it's a little bit worse than I thought. That's how I've been told.
Before I bring in Frankie and Ant again, Mike, obviously we lost you for that first half hour, so I just want to quickly throw some other couple of things at you. We've seen reports Spurs are trying to make maybe up to 3 signings before that window closes, the likes of a right wing back, central midfielder, and a striker if possible. As things stand at the moment on the 26th of January, are those the positions that you understand Spurs are still trying to fill, or has that changed?
Look, I'm going to be completely honest. I was told Friday lunchtime that Traore would be sorted by now. So the fact that it's not is a surprise to me and many others who have contacts at clubs. What I'm trying to find out, and many others will as well, is the Luis Diaz interest stopping the Traore deal going through. Now, one thing I have been told, there's been a lot made about moving Traore right wing back. That, to me, is not permanent, not forever. It's maybe just until the end of the season. Spurs are looking at a lot of players in that position. They know there's a bit of a homegrown issue. They're looking in the Championship for some right wing backs. Spurs have got about 18, 19 games left. Antonio Conte says to Paratici, yeah, I know you love him. I can sort him out in that right wing back role. What I'm going to do, he's going to bomb down that right. Romero is going to come back and he's going to play that right centre. But in an ideal world, he's going to play there and cover because he knows Romero can do that. And he's just going to let Traore just boom down that right. Because in these Conte positions, we've seen it with Thomas Tuchel as well, with Reece James and Ben Chilwell. Unfortunately, not against Tottenham, but other teams, they've struggled because they're so reliant on these two players. Spurs at the moment haven't got those two players. So he's looking at it just for now. Traore doesn't want to be there for the rest of his career, but he's looking at it. I'm joining a massive club, one of the best managers in the world. I'll give it a go for 6 months. I've been told that's not permanent.
That's interesting. Let's go round to the boys quickly on this. Frank, let's come over to you. Obviously, we just heard from Michael there, a brief update on those couple of players. Frank, have you had any reservations about Adama Traore? I mean, if that deal still gets done, and now obviously we're still waiting to find out if it's still going to be dependent potentially on this move for, of course, Diaz. Are you as keen on Adama Traore as... Because, I mean, at the moment, let's be honest, he does really divert... It's a diversity of his opinion, isn't it, really, with Traore? He's not everybody's cup of tea, put it like that.
No, he divides opinion, particularly amongst the Spurs fan base and even the Wolves fan base. But he's Premier League proven. There's no adaptation period. He moves, 2 hours from where he lives currently. He knows the Premier League. He knows all the rigours that come with it, particularly over this period where the weather's cold. There's lots of football. Some players can't hack that. He can. And he's somebody that gets us up the pitch. Now, I understand there's a lot of questions over his end product. But earlier this season, I did see quite a bit of Wolves, and I went to Molineux to watch our match, which we were very lucky to win 1-0. And when with Jimenez coming back from injury, Jimenez missed about 7 or 8 really good chances in the first games of this season that Traore, when he was starting games for Wolves, was creating. So Wolves, notoriously, they don't score a lot of goals anyway. He does put some decent crosses in. I think his crossing is probably underrated. There was a video circulating this week of the assist he got against West Ham for Wolves.
Yeah, wonderful run.
Beautiful run, great cross with the left foot. So for that, I mean, we haven't got a player like him at the moment, have we? I mean, the only players that can get us up the pitch are Son and Lucas, but in a different way. It's more sort of explosive pace, nipping onto the ball and getting in behind. Traore can start that transition to get us up the pitch from deep. And I think, as Bridgie said, with Romero coming back, who I believe will be a fantastic player for Tottenham, fantastic signing, that could be a threat down the right-hand side. But the only thing is, I'd be happy with it, by the way, Rick. The only thing is does Conte want him? Because from what I'm hearing, there was a deal in place. We're now moving to Luis Diaz. Luis Diaz is not going to be playing right wing back. So I'm a bit confused as to how this all fits in. But in an ideal world, I'd take both. I'd have Traore as a right wing back and Diaz as a forward.
This is what I think what's happening is that, you know, when you go shopping and you see a top you really like in, I don't know, Top Man, and you go to Zara and you're like, actually, I really like that one. I'm going to check it's my size. But you've just told someone in Top Man, can you just hold that for me? Like, you know, yeah, medium, yeah, no problem. Just save it for me. I'll be back in a bit. But you actually go and buy something better in Reece or something like that. That's what I think might be happening here in terms of Luis Diaz, is that there's been some kind of chat or, Paratici or someone's had a call that this player might be available this January. Wow, he's elite. Liverpool like him. Why wouldn't they? Many big clubs are going to go for him maybe in the summer. We'll just hold on Traore for now because, as I say, there's no games going on at the moment. We're going to try Diaz. That's what I think might be happening at the moment.
Yeah.
I think that has to be what's happening.
I don't know that for certain, but I think that might be the case because Diaz was not on the radar a few weeks ago. Okay.
I know, obviously, I know, obviously, friend of the channel, Gold said, obviously, the club are quite they're not happy how that's got out because they want to obviously keep that one quiet in terms of negotiations. I mean, and let's come over to you again, just to summarise on obviously Traore, Diaz, on these players, and Traore, as I've said to Bridgie and Frankie there, he does divide opinion, but I've always said with Adama Traore, what he will provide is he brings two players onto him, and therefore that will give him the space to attract the likes of Son, for Kane. Would you be a fan of Traore still if he was to come to the club? Anyone how late we're leaving at the moment?
Yeah, I'd be a fan because, as Frankie said, he knows the Prem, and he takes. He's one of them players that he'd get you off your seat. Do you know what I mean? It's like a young Aaron Lennon back in the day. Do you know what I'm saying? He always got us off our feet, or a young Gareth Bale back in the day. I'm not saying anything like Traore, but it's that excitement. What's going to happen next? And as you said, two players will be on him. Will create so much space for Son, Kane, or even Mora. And it'll be exciting. Listen, if he's there, I'd support him. It does divide opinion, but doesn't football. That's what football's all about. If we all had the same opinion, it'd be boring.
Absolutely. Right, I just want to discuss, obviously, the link that we're having at the moment with regards to a midfielder that, let's be honest about it, nobody's really getting blown away. Bridges will be back in a second. He's just got to make a very quick phone call, such as the nature of a January window. He will be up. He will be back in a second. That is links to, again, a player that, again, it's divided opinion, Sofyan Amrabat. Now, we didn't know, I don't think any of us, as Spurs fans, I can't claim to know I even knew who this player was 3 or 4 days ago. But it seems to be ramping up at the moment that Spurs are very close to his signature. Again, if you've watched YouTube compilations or seen clippings of this guy, I would say, and again, please don't take me as a scouting point because I'm definitely not one of those. I would say a cross between Benjamin Stambouli and Nabil Bentaleb. Now, I really might be having an absolute... I might be really killing the bloke there. So, if he comes in a Spurs shirt, I'll support him, I'll back him, I'll be behind him. He'll be one of our players, of course I will. But if you are telling me that this is the kind of player that was earmarked at the beginning of the January transfer window, I just simply would not have believed you. Now, we will get Bridget's thoughts on him in a second. But before we do, let's come round to Frankie on this. Frankie... Just thoughts on this. Bearing in mind, for me, when I look at that midfield, you've got the likes of Højbjerg, Skip, Winks. For me, the club, they're crying out for a creative midfielder. Surely Sofyan Amrabat, isn't it? Is he?
But he doesn't play that system. He's two central midfielders. It's not where the creativity comes from, unless he plays, obviously, the 3-5-2. But I think he's, from everything I see and read in here, he wants to go back to a 3-4-3. And you have to have two ball winners in midfield. But as I said earlier in the show, I believe that there are those types of players, like a Basuma type, who rarely gives the ball away, who's as good on the ball as he is winning it back. And I think that's the type of midfielder that we'll want in the central midfield, in the centre. We need someone who can control football matches. I don't think the quality of passing in our midfield is good enough. And unfortunately, the most talented, naturally gifted midfielder we have, quite clearly doesn't want to be there in Ndombele, which is just an absolute shame. But for me, I keep saying it, I think it's such an important position for us to get more control on games and football matches. And it is very, again, I don't want to be disrespectful here because I don't know a lot about this player, but it's underwhelming, if you're being completely honest, to a fan base that pay the highest ticket prices in European football. And we're told that this stadium was going to be a game changer for us. Now, I know obviously it's January. I know that the Frankie deal was complicated because he wanted to wait until the summer. I think that was Conte's #1 target. But I just feel that surely there is another option out there in central midfield that's played at a better level. Perhaps somebody who's actually won trophies and can go straight into the first 11 and be an upgrade on one of those positions. And I don't see that in this signing. I might be wrong. Again, I haven't seen enough of this player. But from people I trust and who watch a lot of football and trust their opinion, they tell me that he hardly gets a game for Fiorentina. And for me, if that's the case, does he walk into this starting 11 and improve the team? Obviously not. So I don't know what to say, Rick. Again, I don't want to sort of be really negative because I don't know a lot about this player. But do you expect me to get excited about this signing? No, if I'm being totally honest.
Let's bring you in, Bridgie, and then we'll go to Ant. Go for it, Bridgie. Let's bring you in. You need to unmute your mic first, Bridgie. Yep, we've got you.
Got me? Right. Look,
Yep,
what I'm
go
going to
ahead.
say about this is that the midfield, for me, right, take away the broadcast side of it, I think our midfield needs serious work. Every time Spurs play Chelsea, I'm like, oh, Kovacic on the bench. Oh, no, Kante on the bench.
I know.
They can't do what they want to do this January. And I know that's frustrating. Just the players they want, they cannot get in right now. Now, Sofyan Amrabat, he's been someone, he's not first choice. I think he's a stopgap for now. Do I think Højbjerg's had a good season? I don't. Is he burnt out? Maybe. Is he a bit limited? Maybe. That's just my opinion. Now, Conte, I'm told by a colleague of mine in Italy, really likes Amrabat. Now, I've said it time and time again on Sky. If Conte likes him, that's good enough for me. The last time I properly watched Serie A was on Channel 4. I don't watch Serie A enough to make a judgment. If you said to me a few weeks ago, Spurs are going to sign someone from Fiorentina this January, I'd be dancing and saying, Vlahovic, ree!
Or Batistuta.
But Tottenham need bodies, right? And they can't whack skip for every game here on end. Sometimes I look at Højbjerg and he's a rabbit in headlights. If this is a guy they see... And, I've said, boys, how much I bore people on Twitter about never replacing Eriksen and creativity, bang, blah, blah, blah. People tell me in Italy that Conte won't play it. I mean, he didn't play Eriksen for a long time at Inter. He looks at creativity as anyone should create. You should create in many different ways. Apparently, Amrabat's got a very good passing range on him. And, he wants us to be tough. We're not tough again at the moment. So if he wants Amrabat just until the end of the season, I know it's not sexy. It's good enough for me. It's good enough for me.
Yeah. Let's get your thoughts.
How many times have Tottenham been stung on YouTube? Ndombele. We can even go back to Adel Taarabt. We can all do a good show reel.
Yeah. Yeah, no, we can.
Janssen, if you remember his highlight reel, he was the Eredivisie top scorer.
Yeah.
So I totally agree with that.
Well, even Saldado as well. But I know, again, Saldado, that's one that, again, divides opinion to a degree.
But do not talk about Stefan Dalmat. That geezer was ledge. Geezer was go on.
Just on Sofyan Amrabat for you again. I know it's not a player that maybe we would have heard of or know about him before this January window. Would you be content if it was just a stopgap? If we are going to obviously release some of these midfielders that we're going to ask Mike about in a second.
Yeah, I mean, if it's a stopgap and Conte likes him, who am I to argue? I'm just a supporter of a club that I love for over 40 years. So as long as Conte likes him, then great. Then, as you said, Rick, support him. And if it is a stopgap and we do go for someone like McKennie, who we're heavily linked with, brilliant. Okay, I can live with that. But now we've got to push on now. We've got to control that midfield. Too many games. Okay, we've won a few games, but that Chelsea game really did show that our midfield is so weak. Yeah. So weak. And even Leicester, I know we won at the end, but that was because of our character. Yeah. But during the game, we did play well, but we still get overrun a lot.
Yeah. Bridgie, just to throw in a couple of those central midfielders that Ant picked up on one of them there. The likes at the moment of Weston McKennie, Frank Kessie. Is there any chance on this window as things stand, do you know?
No.
On either, no?
No.
Okay, fine.
I mean, look, if it changes, great.
Of course.
And someone can tweet me, you were wrong. Great. I'm glad I'm wrong. But at the moment, no.
No.
Hence Amrabat.
Yeah, but we have to...
Look, this could all change. Because, look, I work on a transfer show, which is a month long, and there's always something bubbling, but it's usually to do with one club. Look, I talk about Aubameyang, Lingard. What I would love to see in the January window is make it 1 week. No mucking about. You've got 1 week to do your business because you can get done at the end of the day. Stop playing around. The summer's different because you've got pre-season release, people getting released. January doesn't need to be a month, but that's just my opinion.
Yeah,
but you'll see, and in the next few days, things happening. And I think not just Tottenham Hotspur, you'll see a lot of loans. Look at Manchester United. Martial's gone on loan to Seville. No obligation to buy because he could do well for United next year. Donny van der Beek might go on loan to Crystal Palace. No obligation, no loan fee. No, but they wouldn't loan him to Tottenham.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, just Amrabat is a body. It's not sexy and, blah, blah, blah. But it's a body. And as I say, I don't want to repeat myself too much, but if Conte wants him, I think Spurs really just have to get behind it.
Yeah, I agree. Well, listen, we are going to go for our first break of the show for our listeners and audio. For our watching audience, we've got nearly 1,400 of you watching us live. So thank you so much for all your incredible support. Just a shame we haven't got any incomings to talk about. And we are going to turn our attention to some of the outgoings potentially during this January transfer window. Of course, we've lost Dele, a really, really talented youngster. Just quickly on that, before I come back to Bridgie, Frankie, for you, just on Dele, I know it's one, again, as a youngster, we haven't really seen much of in a Spurs shirt. Are you concerned about us maybe losing some of our best youth players? Obviously, we saw Marcus Edwards leave the club not a huge long time ago, and now another one departing, Dele. Is there a concern that some of these youth players can't really see the pathway to the first team?
I think they want first team football, and over the last sort of few years in particular, we've seen even the likes of in a different country, in a slightly different situation, but Jude Bellingham left to go to Borussia Dortmund. We wouldn't have made that move unless they'd promised him regular first team football, and he could evolve at a top club away from the Championship and take that step up. So I think with Markandale, I think it was exactly the same in a sense that he wanted a Championship club because he knew he'd play every week. How often would he play at Tottenham? Realistically, I mean, we're out of the conference, so obviously there were minutes for him this season. I think he came off the bench, was it twice, in 2 of those games? So it's a tough one. I'm not going to be too critical of the club with that particular player because, again, he needed first team football. He was too good for the Premier League too. He didn't want to sort of be stuck with the Spurs under 23s. He wasn't going to get minutes in the first team. Who's in front of him? We've got Bergwijn, Lucas, Son, Kane, Brian Hill. So realistically, there's no first team football for him this season. Is there going to be next season if particularly we finish in the top 4 and we get Champions League? No, he's not going to be in the squad next season. He's not going to get a look in. So from his point of view, I think it was a smart move for him personally. Obviously, it's disappointing that we lost one of the best kids that we've got in the academy.
Yep.
And it's unfortunate that he then went and got injured on his debut as well, coming off the bench. I think he's got a bit of a long-term injury now, so I feel for the kid. But it's just one of them things, Rick. He had to go and find first-team football. It wasn't going to happen at Spurs. It wasn't going to happen at Spurs next season. And credit to him, in my opinion, for going down to the Championship and wanting to play every week. Yeah,
he's obviously coming back from a long-term injury. Might let's bring you in very quickly there.
Yeah, I just want to make one very quick point on Markandé and the whole under-23 structure in general. Like, I'm old enough. I went to reserve/combination games back in the day. Reserve football was a lot different back then. You played in reserves if you had a niggle. Now there's a real gap. It's more still watching the game. A lot of high-profile managers don't rate that level of competition. Now, we've seen games being postponed for injuries. Now, we know the Premier League made a mistake on that, hence them changing the rules this afternoon. Now, the point of that is that the managers, we're all arguing on Twitter, you've got a great under-23 side. Their argument is they're not anywhere near ready. And the people I've spoke to about Markandé said he wasn't really ready at all. So I know it's annoying because everyone loves seeing one of their own come through, but I didn't see it with Markandé, with what I was told. But the problem is, like everyone sees it on the under-23s, he's banging them in every week. So I think it's a wider issue of what we do with the gap between the Premier League and this under-23 level. I don't like Pep Guardiola's idea of putting B teams in the EFL because I think we've got the structure in world football. I love non-league football. I wouldn't want to ruin that with reserve and B teams. But there's too big a gap there, which means managers don't have faith in these players to make that next step up. And my point on the under-23s, you look at Brian Hill, who wanted by a number of teams in La Liga. What a waste of time. If we want Brian Hill to grow and develop, you send him to Norwich or someone lower down in the Premier League. He doesn't go back to Seville. We know he can score against Eibar. Irrelevant. We need to see what he can do in the Premier League lower down.
Just on Brian Hill, as you mentioned,
100%.
We understand on Brian Hill that from Fabrizio Romano that Valencia is still waiting for a decision on Tottenham about a potential loan move for him. Could you see him being a player Spurs would allow to move on loan this window potentially?
He's got so much interest from Spain. So, I mean, look, I don't see the point. I just don't see the point. Look, Tottenham Hotspur signed him because he's good in La Liga. I want to see how good he is against Watford or Crystal Palace.
Yeah.
I don't care if he's good
Bridgie.
against Real Sociedad in the Copa del Rey second leg. It's irrelevant.
I was going to say,
Yeah.
I was just going to say, do not underestimate how different our football is to the rest of Europe. The intensity, the pressure, even the physicality side of things, the relentlessness of the Christmas period, which is unlike any other calendar across Europe. It is a different brand and type of football. The weather, as well in the winter, particularly now, it's bitter. And he's not going to get any of those experiences playing in Italy or Spain or France or Germany. He's not. It has to be in England. Even if it was he'll probably think himself he's too good for the Championship. And we didn't buy him to put him out on loan at a Championship club. But if he can't get a Premier League loan move, loan him out to a top Championship club and see how he deals with the physicality of that league. Because
or Leeds or somewhere.
He'd be better in the Championship than he would be in the Liga, in my opinion, to get a better understanding of the English game.
Very quickly, Ant, to come over to you. How concerning is that, Ant? We spend quite a considerable amount of money on Bryan Hill. And again, it was an undisclosed fee from what I understand, because again, Eric Lamela went the other way to Seville.
Yeah.
Have you been disappointed by what you've seen of the kid so far? Do you not think he's been given a fair chance?
I don't think, obviously, he hasn't been given the fair chance, but from what I've seen, I've not been that impressed. I got told that this kid's the next best thing, and I hope I'm on this show in a few years' time going, my word, what a signing he was. But at this present time, I'm not seeing anything to go for him to warrant a starting 11 in the starting 11, and it just shows the lack of the transfer activity that was in last summer. But I'm with the boys. Loan him to a lower Premier League side, like a Leeds. He'll fit in well with Bielsa. Do you know what I mean? Maybe a Watford or a Palace, just somewhere like that where he can get the physicality.
Think he gets in Leeds. You don't get in Leeds' side. Jack Harrison, Rafinha.
We don't think he'll.
When he's fit. I don't think he starts for Leeds United. It has to be a lower tier side. I know, obviously, they're not too far above the relegation zone, but I don't think he starts for Leeds. So we have to be careful if we're going to send him out somewhere. He has to play every week. And I do sort of agree with
Palace?
you. I don't even know if he gets in the Palace side. He doesn't get in the Palace side. There's literally.
This is what I'm saying. Where does he fit? This is what I mean. He'll go and be physical.
He was bought. He was definitely bought for the future, wasn't he?
But is he a Conte player? Is he a Conte player? In a year, 2 years' time. This is what I mean.
It's not easy because Norwich are telling Billy Gilmore to F off back to Chelsea, and he's their most technical player. So it's not easy. You've got to get the right mould. I would send a lot of our under-23s to QPR because I know Mark Warburton's a Tottenham guy and he wants Spurs players to develop. But I think Gil's probably better than the Championship. It's really difficult. Pete Mason says send him to Enfield Town. I'm going to Enfield Town on Saturday, Pete. I totally agree with you.
I'm worried that our level is dropping down to Enfield Town.
But on that signing, Rick, just on that signing of Bryan Hill, I think it was an opportunity. I think, obviously, they wanted to get rid of Lamela for whatever reason. That was part of the deal. It just fell in, the opportunity popped up, and his reputation across Europe, and particularly in Spain, is that he's one of the next big stars of Spanish football. It's too early to judge him. He's still a kid, relatively. And, we're going to have to give him time to evolve. But I understand the frustrations because the outlay, how much would you have valued Lamela at in the summer? 15 million? 12 million? So if you add that all together, I understand the question amongst the fan base is, could we have spent that money better elsewhere on a position that was more in need and somebody who would start more games?
But I come back to the point of he's one for the future. Now, I'm not going to be sitting here waiting for a kid to come good in January 2026. Not interested. I want someone to start now and kick on, because us as fans, we want to see results straight away.
I think what didn't help as well was that Nuno Espirito Santo treated the Conference League like a School B team, and it was like, you kids go on playing that match, and then the big boys are going to train. And Hill was part of the unwanted boys, and Ben Davis said to us a few months ago, it just didn't feel right, didn't feel nice. That doesn't excuse their poor performances at Vitesse and the other match we played. I can't remember.
Of course,
Rennes. But it was just that kind of attitude of us v them, and it just got off on the wrong foot. And any new signing, especially from another country, if you don't bed him in right, you know, I think Havertz started poorly at Chelsea, didn't he? And he ends up winning the Champions League for them. I'd certainly give him time. The first leg actually at Chelsea, he was the only one who did anything. Like, I think he went round Rudiger or someone. It was the only bit of excitement. I'm certainly not going to give up on the guy. At the moment,
not at all.
It looks like odd business. But it was, you know, like Lamella's obviously was enjoying life in Spain, but he suits that kind of play. But I'm not going to give up on the hill. But if there's a loan like maybe a Burnley, then I'd certainly take it. But my point being, from a fan's point of view, I wouldn't accept any bid from Valencia. Any owner, there's no point. We know he can do it in the league. It's just pointless.
Yep, totally agree. Mike, conscious of time, we're just going to bring it on to our current midfielders that look like they might be heading out the door. The likes of Dele Alli, Ndombele and Gio Lo Celso. They weren't involved at all in Sunday's 2-0 loss against Chelsea. We saw obviously the latter with Lo Celso taking to social media to say that he was in good physical condition 100%. Firstly, on Lo Celso, do we know where we're at with his future?
Well, I mean, out of the three, that was the one that surprised me on Sunday, because with so many injuries and knocks, and he came on against Leicester, didn't he? And was in the away end sort of clapping the fans. Then all of a sudden he's not in the squad. And then naturally every fan's thinking, oh, he's injured again. And, you know, they're right to think that. And then all of a sudden it wasn't that. So as of now, I'm not told of any approach or bid, but there must be something in the pipeline to have not put him in the squad at all. He's the one where I'm not sure if he will go. I mean, obviously he's with his beloved Argentina at the moment. Now, it is an interesting one because there's a few things holding up that deal. For me, I mean, I think he's kind of lucky to get PSG because he's shown Spurs absolutely nothing. As a fan, I would swap him with Gini Wijnaldum. Like, you know, like nothing. People talk about, oh, he's too old for Spurs. I'm not talking about permanent deals, just a
all day long.
Just a swap.
Because he's such a fantastic midfielder. But I know it's not going to happen. But it's such common sense because I'm reading PSG from French reports that PSG need to get one out. Great, we'll have Gini. Because Tottenham wanted him a few years ago. But out of the three, now I'm told as well, Dele, there's no real great interest in Dele at the moment. That's a real worry.
Even on loan? So loan and perm, there's no...
Not at the moment, no.
Right.
But look, what about Newcastle, Bridgie?
I don't think Tottenham are too keen to deal with Newcastle. No, that's little bits I've heard. Look, I think Dele will be talked about on deadline day. I really do. Remember, boys, this is the 26th of January. Things could change in the next hour. But at the moment, there is no concrete interest in Dele Alli at the moment.
So would you say at the moment, out of those three, the midfielders, Dele and Ndombele, Lo Celso, and Ndombele is the more likely one to go as things stand, Mike?
If there's one or two things that they can sort out, then yes. But
okay.
Look at this, right? So no one likes losing to Chelsea. We know this is their big derby, and I had to unfollow their Twitter account the other day. I'm sick of it going on about how much it means to them. But that team that we had to put out that Sunday, you think of those three players not in the squad. Two of those players were over 100 million quid that summer.
Yeah.
Now, hear me out here, right? Now, I know Steve Hitchen gets a lot of stick, but from a TV production point of view, you can film 15 hours worth of footage and just use 1 minute. Now, I know there's that famous I hate it line, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff they didn't use and a lot of really interesting stuff. And I think they kind of did him dirty a little bit. Pochettino wanted Lo Celso and he also wanted Ndombele. I love the look of Ndombele. He looked like the Dembele replacement to me. Lo Celso, I wasn't sure. But I'm sick and tired after 3 years of saying he can play there, he can play there, he can play. No, at one point we have to say the player has to take responsibility and nail down a place. Is he a 6? Is he an 8? Or is he a 10? Hasn't done it in any position. Neither has Ndombele, right? And if they say, oh, they might come good, right, I'm not waiting any more. So that has to be the case. So that's what Conte is doing. So I have full backing of Antonio Conte as a supporter if he's saying these guys cannot be on my boat anymore because they're just not for me. I back him fully 100%.
And just one more, Bridgie. Jesse Lingard. I mean, we've heard again reports that United are not looking to really do business with West Ham and Tottenham because they would be strengthening a rival. Is there anything to read upon Jesse Lingard? Do you expect that one to kind of again go down to deadline day?
Well, interesting one, that one, because Manchester United have given Martial to Seville for free, but paying his full wages. Van der Beek would go to another club, full wages, but no fee. With Lingard, they want quite a big fee from Newcastle, which is which is interesting. They're not going to loan him to West Ham, and they certainly won't loan him to Tottenham Hotspur. So I was a little bit. This isn't the story that I got. I'm going to hold my hand up. It was a surprise to me as well. But if there's interest there, it would be in the summer. But with my fan hat on at the moment, I think it's more of a January than the summer. I think in the summer, I'd like Tottenham to start looking elsewhere. I think January would make a great impact. It's not going to happen in January.
Okay, let's go back around to the boys. Frank, let's come around to you. I mean, listen, I think it's no great surprise we're trying to move obviously the likes of Ndombele, Lo Celso, Dele on. I want to ask you, Frank, how detrimental will it be if any of those, if not two of those players, are still going to be here come the end of the window? How easy will it be to integrate those back into the squad, in your opinion?
It's not ideal because it's obvious that they're surplus to requirements under Conte. So from a lot of these players, they haven't had the best few years anyway, have they? Even Dele, form-wise, their confidence must be, if not through the floor, in the case of Dele, the confidence must be drained, to be totally honest. However, with the players have got to want to play. And I think the situation with Dele Alli is, from what I hear, he thinks he's too good for Everton. There was an approach from Everton. He doesn't want to go to Everton. Newcastle, the project there, interests him because obviously you can see the direction they're going in. And it seems that there are other clubs, Brighton and Southampton have been mentioned. But another issue is with Tongi and Dele is they're two of our top 4 earners at the club. So who's going to match their high wages? Can the likes of Southampton and Brighton afford to pay Dele's wages in full? I'm not sure. So it's not as cut and dry. It's just get them out the door. Move them on. It's not that simple. And also they've got to relocate. They might be happy near. I don't know. There's so many facets and variables to the situation of trying to get these players out. But it's going to be difficult. Of the 5 that the media are mentioning, realistically, we'll be lucky to get 2 of those out. And obviously, it seems that until we shift 1 or 2, we're not going to sort of be looking at other positions. I mean, it's all depending on who goes out. So it is literally at the moment finely balanced. We've just got to get quite lucky with, again, one of these clubs that are interested coming to taking these players from us. Because of these clubs, if you're PSG, is Tongi and Ndombele your first choice? Probably not.
Yeah.
If you're Newcastle, it seems to me Jesse Lingard was their first choice. Okay, if you can't get Lingard, would you go for Dele Alli? Possibly.
Yep.
But these players don't seem to be the first choice of the clubs they're linked with. They seem to be sort of backups, much like perhaps Traore is at the moment for Diaz with Conte, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So much has to fall into place and has to happen before anything else happens, if that makes sense.
Yep.
With ingoings and outgoings. So it's frustrating, but I think the club will try. By the sounds of things, they are trying. They're trying to get rid of players.
Yeah.
But whether they'll be able to is another question, and it's going to be a struggle, Rick.
I mean, and coming over to you, where we are in the transfer window at the moment, how concerning is that essentially we're looking to offload? Again, they've not been playing regular football here, the likes of obviously Ndombele, out of those 3, and Dele Alli as well. But I mean, that's quite a number of creative players we're letting go there. And please pardon the pun, because I know people might find that slightly sarcastic, bearing in mind their lack of football. We're letting go a number of those players that could be creative elements to the team. And at the moment, from what we're hearing links-wise, Sofyan Amrabat, again, is as we've described as a body that, would be able to help the team. Are you worried about letting those players go and not bringing another creative midfielder in could really damage the season?
I think it's time for them to go, personally, whether it be a loan with an obligation to buy or loan just for themselves, just to go out and play football. Obviously, Dele, he's just declined, isn't he? I think he needs to go for himself rather than forget football, his own health, and to be around maybe in another country or another club in the Premier League. I think for him, he needs to be a top bod in a team, and build the team around him. And Ndombele, I'm very disappointed with. I had such high hopes for him. Lo Celso, I wasn't always that keen on him anyway, so it doesn't really bother me. And I think if two of them have to go, then whoever stays has to fight for his place in the team, because we do need some creativity. But I'm reading this, Ndombele stats. He's completed 9 90-minute games in 2.5 years. I mean, that stat is an absolute.
Can't carry on. We're paying him too much money.
Joke.
Record
It's
signing
a joke.
as well.
It's bad. It's bad. And Lo Celso as well was hardly played for us, as we know. So, yeah, I think them two definitely have to go on loan or even get sold.
Can I ask you, Mike, before we go for our final break of the show for our audio listeners, if we was to somehow miraculously get all those three out the door by the deadline, would it be a possibility that we may see a surprise name come in as a creative midfielder, or is it just about where the dominoes fall towards the coming end days of the window, in your opinion?
Well, Rick, I've made no secret of my obsession with a creative midfielder. Eriksen's stats, they were he tops every Premier League stat for chances created, free, literally everything. And Tottenham have missed it so much. I mean, even when Eriksen wanted to leave, he came on against Villa on the opening day and turns the game, wins 3-1. Mourinho brought him on after 25 minutes for Diaz in the Champions League game, and Spurs win 4-2. Spurs have just missed that player who can pick a pass. Spurs cannot keep the ball. A few years ago, Tottenham in their final season at White Hart Lane, they never lost the ball. They were just so good to watch. And now it's turgid. It's poor players. Look, I think getting rid of all three is a bit of a risk, in my opinion, because I think they'll get Amrabat in, but I don't think they'll get any other midfielder in at the moment. They really like Frank Kessie, but there'll be a lot of interest there. Weston McKennie, I think, is doing pretty well at Juve at the moment. And as I say, speaking to my colleague in Italy, Damasio, who's a good friend of Paratici and Conte, he said that Tottenham are going to do incredible, huge business, plenty of business, I think, was what he said in the summer. And the midfield was the area they really wanted to target. And I think if we're honest, I think we all love the players as individuals in our midfield, but how many would get in the top 4 sides? None of them, would they, really? So we've got to be completely honest. And I think, it's time Spurs need to be feared again. I'm sick of the Tottenham get battered song and all that, but I want Tottenham to go to Stamford Bridge and give these players a good hiding, and the midfield just don't cut it. But if you're asking me, do I think Spurs will get the 3 midfielders out with 3 midfielders in? No. I just don't think that's going to happen. That's why I think it is a bit of a risk. But has there been a fallout of Lo Celso? I mean, from what I hear, he isn't the most chummiest kind of guy anyway. He isn't the most,
Yeah, we've heard these rumours that he's not particularly liked around the club. I mean, again, we don't expect you to comment on that if you don't want to. But
yeah, I mean, that's, you hear things, I think what's not good from a Tottenham point of view is he looks like Victor Meldrew from One Foot in the Grave when he's at Tottenham. Then the minute he flies to Argentina, it's arm in arm with these blokes and they're all playing well again. Now, I'm not going to listen to any more people tell me, he's so good for Argentina, we need to find a way. No, they've tried it. Sort something out for him. I've had enough. But that's me as a fan. Yep. So I just don't think all 3 will go. But look, my understanding is there's no concrete interest in Dele. Deadline day, 6 a.m. There could be 3 clubs after him. That's deadline day.
We have to emphasise again, the transfer windows, better than anyone, Mike. And again, for listeners, viewers watching this, it changes. It changes minute by minute, second by second. So we have to stress that point. Right, we are going to go for our final break of the show. For our listeners that are on audio, there is over nearly 1,500 of you watching us live. Quite incredible that, bearing in mind, Spurs are yet to make any incoming signings, and we're all baiting, and we'll be watching Sky Sports News, hopefully for that yellow ticker very, very soon. No pressure on you at all, Bridgie. Have a word with the producers, please. Right, okay. Just to look as we're coming towards the end, let's just just touch up on a few names. Steven Bergwijn, Bridgie. Again, listen, he's got a great brace against Leicester. Incredible moment for Spurs in what could become a huge 3 points of the season, which could ultimately lead to Spurs being back in the Champions League, may I dare say. But there's this Ajax rumour that still won't go away. Can you give us the latest on that? Do you think Bergwijn could still leave the club in the coming days?
Well, it won't go away because the interest is still there. What it's done is it's strengthened his position at Tottenham Hotspur. Ajax really want him. They offered, I think, around 15, 16, and then maybe the odd bonus here and there. But I think it was about Ajax winning Champions League or something like that. Look, for me, in my opinion, as taking away the broadcast side again as a fan, I was happy for him to go. I was sick to death of like playing one game, then injured for 3 games, playing one game, injured for 3. But listening to Antonio Conte a few weeks ago, he mentioned Bergwijn without anyone asking him. And he said, I really count on him. And then he brought him on against Leicester. And then, I'm sure a lot of you have heard, he said to Tottenham TV that I could use him as a striker. I thought he played well against Chelsea. He looked tired. But no, I wouldn't rush to sell him at the moment. I've seen enough over the last few weeks to say, look, let's just keep him for now. What I would say is Ajax still really, really want to sign him. I think Spurs would have to bring in Diaz and Traore to consider it now. I really do.
Yeah.
I think, but do you know what as well? Spurs have missed Son lately, and people say he's not been playing well lately, but he was still,
He can still get you a goal. Yeah.
He was still nominated for Player of the Month, and it's not as if Spurs are blessed with other options.
Yep.
So let's not start throwing players back to Ajax if they're playing all right. And I thought Bergwijn played all right the other night. I thought he got a serious, that goal when Kane scored, Bergwijn went down. I thought, oh my God, he's done his hammy. He hadn't. He was just knackered. But that's fine. I'd keep him personally. But the question, do Ajax still want him? Yes. Do Spurs want to sell him? Not so sure now.
Okay, we'll keep an eye on that one. Let's go round back to the boys. Frankie, just on that with Bergwijn. If it was a case that we were bringing the likes of Diaz and Traore in, I have to say those, hypothetically bring those players in, would you be in favour of seeing Bergwijn leave the club, or do you think there's more to him, Frankie, that we haven't quite seen yet with the Dutchman?
Possibly. I mean, he was brilliant against West Ham this season in the League Cup, and he was okay against Chelsea. Obviously, superb against Leicester, but he's another one. I mean, he's shown in very small glimpses that he has got ability. I'm not sure if it's a confidence thing with Bergwijn, but if we do get Traore and Diaz, or even one or the other, where does that leave him? I mean, if we get Diaz, it pushes him down the pecking order, quite simply. With Son and Kane there as well, and Lucas, I think they're his preferred 3 choices at the moment. Bergwijn is the full starter out of those 4. So if Diaz comes in, then I can't see where he fits in. Like Bridgie, I think possibly recently shown more than others, so perhaps does deserve another chance. But I don't know. I mean, if Diaz does come in and we sell Bergwijn and we use those funds perhaps for another position, I'm not too against that. How long has he been at the club now, Rick? 2.5 years?
Yep.
How many good games has he had in those 2.5 years?
You count them on one hand, wouldn't you, really? That's the problem.
You can count them on one hand. He's shown in glimpses. Is that possibly because of Mourinho had him playing at sort of almost a wing-back position in some points when he was manager? If we're being fair to Bergwijn, he was asked to do a lot, wasn't he, going the other way?
Yeah,
Mourinho didn't want him.
Defensively. Yeah, so
well, how worrying was that? How public that was made as well? I couldn't believe that at the time. Yeah.
And Nuno actually quite liked Bergwijn because he played him at the beginning of the season. I thought he had a great start to the season, Stephen Bergwijn. Without obviously the goals and assists to show, but he was probably our best player against Wolves up there. He done well against Manchester City when we beat them in the first game of the season. So I don't know, but the issue is, and Bridgie mentioned it earlier, we've got players now like Gio, like Ndombele, and I put Bergwijn in that bracket, that have been here now for over 2 years, nearly 3 years. And are we going to keep giving these players chances when they haven't produced the goods?
Well, you're right, Frank, because the point is that although he scored 2 at Leicester, this isn't a charity. That was his first league goal in 8 months. I want to see so much more. You look at Diego Jota, bang, straight in from Wolves. So if Ajax did come in with 23, 24 million, Spurs have got every right to consider it. And if he has a slump again or has an injury, Spurs should consider it, because there have been. I'm old enough to remember Ronnie Rosenthal getting a hat trick at Southampton, 6-2 in 1995 in a 5th round replay.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just have good nights. Now, I'm not comparing him to Ronnie Rosenthal, but I'm saying I want more from you, Bergwijn. I want a lot more, and I should demand a lot more.
Yeah. And let's come over to you quickly on Bergwijn. From what you've seen from him so far for you, would he be a player that you'd be fighting to keep before the deadline?
I'm sort of on the fence on this one because you've seen the potential of him. He has got glimpses, as Frank said, in some games, but then you sort of go back to what Bridgie said in terms of we're not a charity. We can't just have these players because they're nice guys or they scored a winning goal in against Leicester and stuff like that. I do want to see more. I haven't been that impressed, but out of the, if you was telling me who would you rather sell, Lo Celso and Ndombele or Bergwijn, Bergwijn would be the last person to sell out of them three. So, I think we do need, but the thing is we need a squad now. We need to start building a squad. If we bring some new players in and some go, we do need to have, a bench, to players to come on to make an impact if and when they're called upon.
Yeah, absolutely. Mike, I might be bringing the mood down here, so please accept my apologies. A player that Sky reported on, I want to say earlier this week, a forward. Let's all get excited. It's a forward. His name, Mohamed Ali Cho. Anything, Mike, you can tell us if Spurs are still interested in the player? We've just muted you there again, Mike. I don't know if it was because you perhaps didn't want to talk about him. Let's bring you back off.
That's not my story, Rick. I think that might be an agent throwing to clubs.
Right. Okay.
Looks like a Sarr kind of deal. If Tottenham were to buy him, then he'd probably go back on loan. A poor kid, like 2 goals in, was it 9 games or something, and people are going
2 goals in 18 Liga appearances.
Yeah, but I mean, look, I can understand it. Tottenham should look. I'm going to say it now. Tottenham should have signed Dusan Vlahovic last summer. They really should have just gone for it. The whole Kane mess stopped it. I've had the whole month on Sky talking about Vlahovic to Arsenal, and it's killed me because I know Tottenham loved him, and I kind of feel like he's going to be wasted at Juve. And I know it's disrespectful to Serie A, but I think this guy is the absolute real deal. I think he's absolutely made for the Premier League. And I've been watching him since last summer because I know Tottenham liked him a lot. And I'm thinking, this guy is utterly sensational. So it's such a shame. So to be honest with you, any other striker I hear now, I'm a little bit, but with that player, it's not my story. It might potentially be an agent throwing to Spurs. Spurs haven't completely denied it, but again, I mean, we'll see how that develops. But I think what Tottenham need to do now, and Antonio Conte said this to me on a press conference a few weeks ago, Tottenham need to sign strikers that are on Harry Kane's level. Tottenham have been obsessed in the past of saying, oh, no, we can't dislodge Harry Kane. We'll get someone else to sit on the bench. No. Winners like Antonio Conte want level, the same level. That's what Spurs need to aspire to. Not he's good. He'll be good. He'll love the bench. Oh, it's nice and warm in these seats. Oh, this is nice. Lovely. No, there needs to be Conte's bang on.
Kane needs competition now. It's getting to a point now.
What we're going to do if Kane gets injured, because we haven't got these forwards we're linked with. Diaz, for instance, he doesn't play anything like Harry Kane. And Vlahovic can play with his back to goal. We haven't got another player. Steven Bergwijn done okay against Chelsea with holding the ball up, but against a big physical centre-back, we haven't got anyone like who can do what Kane does and get us up the pitch by holding the ball up, bringing others into play, as I said, playing with his back to goal, a bit more of a target man type. What happens if Harry Kane gets injured? Because the rest are almost similar in a sense. Lucas, Bergwijn, even Diaz, who we link with, Son, they're different players to Harry Kane. And this is the problem. I mean, at Inter Milan, he had Dybala, he had Martinez, and he had Lukaku. There's such a good balance of options there. And I just feel that my biggest issue for forward options is exactly that. If Kane does get injured, we've been extremely lucky so far this season. What happens?
But we need someone now. We need someone now to challenge Kane. Yeah. It's got to a point now. What if Kane was injured against Chelsea? Son's out, Kane's out. Where's the goals coming from?
It's the problem, isn't it?
I'm fed up of it. I'm fed up of that thing. Oh, who's going to sit on the bench for Harry Kane? We don't need a second striker. We've got Harry Kane. Harry Kane, as Frank said, we've been lucky this season, touch wood, that he hasn't had an injury.
But we know there's always an ankle injury with Kane around January.
Always,
February,
mate.
Always the way.
But what's
Bridgie,
going to happen when he retires in a few years?
Well, they're going to have to solve it sooner rather than later. Bridgie, is there any strikers, forwards, that we've been linked with, or you can tell us Spurs are maybe looking at between now and the deadline? We need to bring you back off mute, Bridgie. Sorry, I know you don't want to answer this one.
Sorry. No. I mean,
None at all.
look, Diaz has obviously come out of nowhere. Whether that's an agent saying that he might be available now and it might happen with a striker, I don't know. But look, I think Dusan Vlahovic was on Tottenham's radar and he's no longer there. You know, it's a real blow. As I say, he could have been, you know, exaggerating here, but at Tottenham's Klinsmann, he's that good. It's a shame he's staying in Serie A. It's good he's not going to Arsenal. But no, there's nothing on the horizon strike-wise at the moment. It's funny because I went to the it was the last press, it was the one and only press conference in person. It was before the Norwich game and Antonio Conte. So I'll let you in on an Antonio Conte press conference. So he asks for every journalist to ask just one question. So you're like, wow, that's not much. I usually get 5 or 6, but the press guy said he promises you a long, concise, considered answer. And I'll tell you what, he does. You know, like you remember managers in the past might be one-word answers or, you know, like Nuno Espirito Santo, lovely guy, but he'd be a bit... I remember when Alistair asked him a question about Oliver Skip, you know, great game today. And he said, I don't talk about individuals. And, you know, we're all looking thinking, is it positive? You know, but with Antonio Conte, someone asked about Harry Kane playing in the Conference League. And he said, I have to be honest with you, I cannot afford to rest him. He's like, wow. He said, I can't rest him. And he's played every game. And even against Morecambe.
Says it all. That says it all.
Yeah. And Morecambe, League One, he had to bring Kane on to turn the game around. I was embarrassed.
Yeah. What
You and me both, son.
Is it a case, Bridgie, we just keep one eye on it then between now and the window? I mean, this could change.
Look, I'm on with 4 or 5 days to go, right?
Yeah.
So universally out there, the players Tottenham want.
Yeah.
Luis Diaz is a name that's cropped up from the Portuguese press, which we've had backed up, which is, that's fine. Tottenham are really trying for that. I don't want to come on here and like with party things and like fireworks because I've been here before with Dybala and like loads of players before.
Lautaro Martinez,
Yeah, but that was a weird one because I was told that was never close, but Dybala was close. And I was running around the Sky offices going, yes! You know, like, and I was talking to people with better contacts than me, really close to the board, looking good. Martinez never. That was why it was a weird one for me. But that one, I was running around going, Dybala, whoa. But that's why I don't want to go too much on Diaz. But I do know they're really going for this. Really going for this. But because I know Liverpool like him. And Liverpool will look for him in the summer. So my message to Spurs would be, get someone for, even if you have to pay an extra 10 million, that extra 10 million turns into getting an extra 110 million when you're in the top 4. Yeah. Because that top 4 is absolutely wide open. Get a couple in, get in the top 4. Yeah. It's going to make the whole world of difference.
And he's a state. I mean, again, Luis Diaz, he would be a statement signing, right? He's a player that would, you know, it would, whatever anyone thinks about Tottenham as a football club, that would make Europe slightly look at Tottenham and think, God, that's a player you've got there.
And what would be that good. When people say, oh, but where does he fit? We've got Mora. top players fit. End of. Like, you don't need to.
You think?
Don't worry about it. They fit because they get in the team.
Well, of course, the changer room gets a boost. They all know who Luis Diaz is. They've seen the goals in the Champions League against Manchester City. They've seen the quality. The players get a lift. Harry Kane all of a sudden thinks, that's a great signing, Luis Diaz. Brilliant.
We're serious.
What do we think? What does the toxic world of Spurs Twitter think? The whole fan base is lifted by a signing of that ilk and magnitude. And I would urge the board, if we are looking at it, and as Bridgie said, we're a matter of £5 or £10 million short of what we're offering, go and pay that extra because it could be the game changer and the difference.
Exactly.
Again, which gets you top 4 or not. Yep.
Bridgie, we're going to throw some defenders at you and you can tell us where we're at in terms of their movement this window. Javit Tanganga, that link to AC Milan still doesn't seem to be going away. We've got Matt Doherty, it's gone quiet on for a couple of days, and Joe Rodon. Those three, do you expect them to be on the move between now and the end of this January transfer window?
So my understanding is that Tottenham, if they got a defender in, which at the moment isn't close, they would allow Rodon and Tanganga to go out on loan. Again, taking the Sky hat off and putting my Spurs hat on, I'd love to see Tanganga go on loan. I think he's had a difficult month, being kind. And I think AC Milan, Maldini and, Tomore's there. Go on loan. Have a change of culture. You've been at Spurs since you were 6. Have 6 months somewhere else. Rodon's an interesting one because I don't think there's a lot of interest at the moment in the Premier League. And I think Spurs would probably encourage it because Antonio Conte, again, said a really interesting thing to me early December. I think it might be to Jonathan Veal. And he said, look, Rodon's not getting in the team. And he said, Conte always starts with, I have to be honest with you. He says, I only see Joe Rodon as an Eric Dyer replacement, playing in the centre of the 3. I was surprised because I've seen Rodon play left centre, right centre at Wales, and I think he's done well. But I'm not sure if Conte's totally sold on him. So that's an interesting one. I know I think he's had a few rib injuries as well, so he's not played a lot of games, but his career just hasn't taken off whatsoever for Spurs.
No.
If Tottenham brought a defender in, I'd send both on loan without any qualms. I mean, Romero's ready. Romero wanted to play on Sunday, but Spurs have said, look, just next time. Also, they didn't want him to go out international duty again. So I think he's gone to Dubai or he's gone on holiday for a bit, but he's ready. He's completely ready.
Okay.
And of course, Conte likes him as the third, that's the right of the 3.
Yep.
And Dyer, I picked Dyer as my player of the year now, really, or most improved player under Conte. So, but Romero coming back is a real boost. But I think Tanganga needs a loan. I really do.
And Doherty, very quickly, it's gone very quiet on in the last few days. I mean, is there a chance he now stays at the club, or do you think
I think he was quite hurt by not be. He's aware that he's not wanted. But he played really well at Leicester, didn't he? Again, it's this Bergwijn situation.
Yeah, when you say not wanted, do you mean by the fans or by the club?
Both. Look, he's available, but I don't think anyone's going to bid for him. But he did really well second half against Leicester. But he's got to keep that going. Can't be just one game. But I felt sorry for him the other week playing left wing back 2 games. He's a right wing back end of. But what I would say is people say he's not had the chance there. He has. He had that chance last year. He got sent off against Leeds and Mourinho gave him, if looks could kill, he'd be dead. Just something's not clicked. There's players where sometimes I look at them and I think they're not Spurs players. Weirdly, I think of like Steven Pienaar and players like that. They never really fitted into Tottenham. And I feel like with Matt Doherty at the moment, but I'd love to be proved wrong. Any player I don't rate, I want to be proved wrong because I want my club to do well.
Yeah.
Genuinely, I want to be proved wrong.
Of course.
Again, time's ticking. And he's on that would consider offers list. Yes, he is. Yeah, 100%. But there isn't any.
Frank, let's come around to you. Based on what we've got defensive at the moment, if we don't bring in another centre-back or anybody to improve that back line, do you think what we've got at the moment is good enough to compete for a top 4 spot?
Within injury dependent, again, like the squad, like most positions, we are 1 or 2 injuries, or particularly 3 or 4 injuries away, or suspensions, or wherever it may be, from weakening the starting 11 significantly. I mean, we've been very unlucky recently. I think against Chelsea, 5 starters who would be in the starting 11 usually missing, and most teams wouldn't be able to cope with that, barring probably City and Chelsea, such as the size and strength of their squad. But what he's done with Ben Davies, he's capable as a left centre back. That's probably the only position I like him in at the moment. He's done pretty well. We'll need to upgrade him at some point, but he starts for the rest of the season. Dyer's been brilliant, almost like David Luiz Dyer in the sense that he struggles in the back 2, being a 3 when he's the orchestrator. almost like the libero, I think that's a good position for him. And I really like Romero. But you go beyond that, the next three are Davinson Sanchez, who's done pretty well, albeit on the right side of the three. I don't like him in the middle. And then the other two are who? Roden, who he doesn't fancy. He's been a disaster, if we're being honest, as a signing. And Tanganga, who's been responsible for a lot of mistakes and goals conceded recently. So, like any position in this squad, Rick, you start losing one or two starters, and the backups or replacements that come in, the fall and drop in quality from the starters is pretty damning at times. And that could cost us. Again, we have to be, with the squad as it is at the moment, so lucky with injuries from now until the end of the season, which is basically hoping for a miracle, for us to obviously stand a chance of finishing in the top four.
Yeah. And same question to you. With what we've got defensive-wise at the moment, if we don't bring in any reinforcements on that back line, are you still confident we've got enough for the rest of the season to try and mount a change for that top four?
Oh, man. No, I don't. Because, as Frank said, Roden hasn't really played a lot this season. Tanganga's cost us a lot of goals, little mistakes here and there. I'm just worried if Romero or Dyer or even Davis gets injured, because I think Davis done all right. Davis done all right this season in a back three. But listen, I want to be proven wrong. Of course, I want that top four. That's what we said when we first started talking tonight. But you've got to have the squad good enough to be able to rotate and have that good bulk of players on the bench to come on and have game changers. Unfortunately, the squad is depleted, and it showed on Sunday.
Yep. Bridgie, we've nearly finished the interrogation. Just a couple more questions to cover off. And before we do, I can see there's been some comments on the screen here. Jed Spence and Diego Carlos, are either of those players on Spurs' radar at the moment?
I think there was interest in Diego Carlos, but Seville are a really hard club to deal with. I mean, even though we bought Brian Hill, but if you remember, Jules Koundé was close to joining Chelsea, and then they upped the value to an extra 10 million. So Chelsea didn't sign him, and that's exactly what's happened to Newcastle United with Diego Carlos. Seville, I think, have only conceded about 16 goals this season, so they don't want to sell him at the moment, even though Carlos wants to leave. There's been talk of a swap deal with Lo Celso and Diego Carlos. Now, my understanding is that's not true. And remembering as well, Lo Celso went from Betis. There was interest. I think he's on a long list of Spurs players they admire, but I don't think they'd ever get involved in a bidding war with Newcastle United at the moment. So I don't see any legs in that as it stands. Spence, again, is one of a number of players Spurs are looking at. Finally, I'm really glad to say that Spurs are looking in the Championship, because it's been long overdue. I've been a big critic of Spurs being too obsessed with looking in Holland and France all the time, and forgetting that Tottenham bought Kyle Walker from Sheffield United. I think we're in League One or the Championship at the time. Spence was incredible against Arsenal in the FA Cup, but Spurs have been looking at Spence for a lot longer than that. So the good news is for Middlesbrough is that they've put his value up for quite a little bit more after that performance. So, but he's on the radar. But Spurs have a number of scouts at many Championship matches at the moment, because, as I said earlier in the podcast, they have to be a bit careful with the homegrown quota, because obviously in the European competitions they always have to leave one senior player out. So they just have to be a little bit careful with that going forward. And I think we do no harm in looking at some real talent in the Championship, because, Jared Bowen, Spurs were never really in for him, but they lost him and went for Jack Clark, and just little mistakes like that. It's not easy, but there's some real talent in that division.
Yep. Bridgie, final two questions to you to close it. The first one, there has been rumours about Harry Kane potentially committing his long-term future to the club. Anything from the Sky Inn that has heard similar about Kane potentially negotiations over a new long-term deal?
No, nothing as yet. What I would say, he's genuinely happy at the moment. He really, really enjoys playing under Antonio Conte. He sees him clearly as a serious manager. I could go into hours talking about the summer situation. I feel for him a little bit. I felt for him a little bit the other night. I felt he was one decent player playing with a bit of rubbish at the moment, but he's completely switched on. And I think we saw that against Leicester. He was, he could have had 4 or 5 goals, but I don't have a problem with that, boys. If he's creating chances, you know, there's going to be one day where he'll bang in all four. He missed a really good chance at Leicester, but he played really well that night. The hunger's back. I think he's back and he's happy. So, I no word yet on a new contract, but he's all right at the moment.
Okay.
What about Keane Williams, Lewis Potter? Is that his name? The whole lad. Is that his name?
I think, I have seen that come about, the whole City youngster at the moment.
Look,
yeah.
As I say, Spurs have got scouts at every single championship game. So, you know, they watched Max Aaron for about 24 years, and he's still at Norwich.
So, as you said though, Bridgie, there's talent in the Championship. If you remember, Grealish was there not so long ago. James Maddison, Jared Bowen, Ollie Watkins, Stephen Rama. Going further back than that, Joni and Lescott was at Wolves in the Championship before he's moved to Everton. There's so many that can make the step up. But as you said, we seem to try and get the best youngsters from Holland or Spain, and it doesn't seem to quite work out, does it?
Hull v Aston Villa, Monday night in the Championship. Grealish waved goodbye to the Villa fans because he thought he was joining Tottenham. I say no more.
Right, okay, well, on that point, we're going to go to Anne, Frankie, and then Bridgie finally to close it. Anne, bearing in mind where we are right now, there's a possibility that we may see your beautiful face before the deadline on here. Potentially, I haven't told you about that yet. I can see your surprise there.
What's going on? What are we doing?
What for you, Anne, would be an acceptable window, bearing in mind where we're at right now? What's acceptable in your opinion?
A midfielder, creative midfielder in an ideal world, a striker, and a right wing back.
Are they minimum requirements for you? Or is that what you think?
For me, that's the minimum to be able to push on. And as Bridgie said, January, as we know, is a tough window to get your business or businesses done. It's the summer. I will reserve judgment until February the 1st, but then summer, if he doesn't get backed, then poor man.
Frankie, let's ask you a similar question there. Frankie, what, in your opinion, is the minimum requirement, and what do you think Spurs will end up with? There you go, a two-parter for you. What do you reckon?
The minimum requirement is always, and quite simply, do what Conte tells you to do, or what Conte asks for. Out of the 5 that we think he wants gone, 2 of them go in, I'd be happy with, and 2 in. A right wing back and a central midfielder for me, because I think we've got enough firepower with Son and Kane. If we were to keep Bergwijn as well, Lucas can play that forward role. So I think a right wing back and a centre mid is essential. However, and last word on Spurs, his very own Richard Cracknell, Cracker's actually tweeted a couple of days back, if, and it's a big if, and it's hypothetical, if we do get rid of, say for instance, Ndombele, Dele, Doherty and Gio Lo Celso, if we got rid of 4 and we didn't get another central midfielder in, I know it leaves us light, but if that was going to free up wages, if they were loans with obligations or however the deals were structured, if it would free up money for the summer and we actually had a proper go in the summer, I hope your source Demartio is right, Bridgie, because if we'd done that, I could accept getting rid of more than seeing getting rid of more players and not having as many come in, if that makes sense. So as long as we can see a pattern, and as long as we can back Conte and give him what he wants, or start to make inroads for him for what he wants, then I'll be happy.
Okay, Bridgie, to close it with you, in your honest, humble opinion, maybe again as a fan and as a broadcaster as well, how many players do you believe Spurs will sign as incomings before the end of this January window? What's your gut feeling?
Head 2, heart 3. I think if Tottenham start February with a stronger squad than they had last week, then that's fine. I just show Daniel, Donna, whoever, the league table right now. It's absolutely open. After the Leicester result, Chelsea was, I hate saying the words free hit, but it wasn't so essential. It was more, like their obsession, their bragging rights. But looking forward now, like, Arsenal, like celebrating the postponement. I've said to Arsenal fans, you do realise Spurs are without Dyer, Romero, Son, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Fine. We'll play you in March, and we'll have blah blah blah. I'd like to say Diaz and people like that. If I'll cut long story short, if Tottenham are stronger in a couple of weeks, I'll be happy. Get a couple in, but fourth is there. Ralph, like United aren't completely, they scraped a win against West Ham. They beat Brentford. They're not completely happy.
Yep.
Spurs are out of Europe. They've only got the FA Cup to concentrate on as well with the league. They're playing practically once a week, apart from the postponement. So the majority of the time they play once a week. That's when I can see the development with the Spurs players, when they have that week with Antonio Conte. What I've been told with a couple of players who I've spoken to and a couple of people at the club, they absolutely love training under Conte. Yeah, they work hard, but they feel so good. So good. And I just don't want Spurs to pass up this opportunity. I know fans loved Poch, and I did too.
Yep.
But this guy is right up there. Like
he's another level. He's another level.
Very, very top. Let's not regret it. Let's back him. And I'm sick of saying this player's going to be good in 3 or 4 years. I want now. And so does Antonio. Let's do it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Mike, to close it, again, talks ongoing for Diaz as things stand. We're just keeping our fingers crossed, right, on that, just to summarise.
Look, as a fan, I'm the usual pessimist I am, because my fingers have been burnt before, but I've been told, no, they're really, really pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing. Amrabat, I reckon, will get done. Traore is the one where I was told was done, and it's not happening. I don't know what's happened there. Whether it's to do with Diaz, I don't know. Or whether it's he's done, we'll do it later. But I don't know about that. I'm working on that. And as I said, if they get Traore in, it will only be for a few months as a right wing back, because I know they like other right wing backs. Lamperty is a fantastic right wing back. The only concern is Brighton want around 50 million and he has injury problems. So there's a number of issues with Lamperty as well. They're going to totally do their midfield in the summer. Let's just hope it's with Conte.
Absolutely. Well, listen, for our watching audience, there's over 1,500 of you watching us live. Thank you so much for your incredible support. From the wonderful Antony Costa, let me have you back on. We're hoping we'll have you back on soon with some
boys.
Parade and talk about fantastic Frankie Major. Frankie, always a pleasure. Looking forward to having you back on us very, very soon.
Thanks for having me, Rick. And I think I'm back on early February, so hopefully we've got some new signings to talk about.
Hopefully you're parading them out, and there's Antony. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see Antony holding the "Come on, you Spurs." Some memorabilia there. My God, do we need it? Bridgie, after a difficult start, we thought the club had got your Wi-Fi, but you made it. Thank you so much, mate, again, for all your time. Really appreciate it as always.
Always a pleasure, mate. Great to see you doing so well. Fantastic.
Oh, mate, and remind us, where can we catch you, Bridgie? Let us know where we can find you.
I'm back on air on Friday, 9 a.m. Good morning, transfers, Sky Sports News, and hopefully we can talk about Spurs.
Fingers crossed. Listen, from all of us, from Antony, from Frankie, from Mike, please keep safe, keep well, and as always,